Shell sort deals with interleveled lists. Shell sort is a sorting algorithm that treats the input as a collection of interleveled lists and sorts each individual with a variant of the insertion sort algorithm. We're going to be using gap values to determine the number of interleveled lists. The gap value is a position integer representing the distance between our elements in the interleveled list. And for each interleveled list, we are just going to divide the length, which is the row in this case, by 2. So now knowing that, we can start doing the shell sort. So we're going to print what this is first. So we're going to do a sysout, and then we'll do shell sorted array. And so that is done. We can come down here, and we're going to first split the list because of gap values. So we're going to have a for loop. We're going to have int a, and this is equal to the row divided by 2. And then we're going to do a as long as it's greater than 0. Because we're not setting a equal to 0, we're going to see if it's greater than 0. And then we're going to run this as long as a divided by equal to 2. So we're basically saying we have a is equal to a divided by 2. And then we're going to be inside of here. We're going to go through the split list now. We're going to have a for loop. We're going to have int b, and this is going to be equal to our a, for the same reason, or similar reason at least, that we had this in the second loop for selection sort and bubble sort. And then we're going to run this as long as b is less than our row, because we want to examine all of our rows. So remember, selection sort is not in the output here, but if we scroll up, selection sort is going to be this, and it's ascending. So we're going to look at every single thing in this row. And so knowing that, we're going to be back in here, and we're going to just do b++. So that for loop is pretty self-explanatory, but this split one is a little bit interesting. So inside of this for loop, we're actually going to be doing a lot. So first, we're going to create a temporary one-dimensional int array with the size of our column. And the reason why it's the size of our column is because we want to have everything in this column be in there for when we shift it. So knowing this, we are going to make int temp, and we're saying this equal to new, and then int, we want to make sure the size is good, so we're going to have column. And then after this, we are going to, for a specified column, move b into our temp array. So we're going to have a for loop for this. We're going to have int c is equal to 0, and we're running this as long as c is less than our column, c++. And then inside of here, we are just going to do temp, our array. We're setting this equal to our array, b, and then c. We don't need spaces actually. It's not really great to do because it kind of already spaces it out a little bit. So we have temp c is equal to array bc. And so we're basically just going through all of these different values in every single different column, but still in the same row because we are in this row, and this row is dependent on which gap. So we're going to be gapping in between the rows. And so that is this for loop. We are going to make a variable int d, and we're going to set equal to 0. We're setting this outside of this for loop because we're going to be using it in the next for loop, and that is to look at the specific values. It'll make more sense when we actually code it. So we're going to have 4, and then d is equal to b, and then we're going to have as long as d is greater than or equal to a, and our array d minus a with the index of 2, because the shell sort is looking at the third column, which index-wise is the second. And we're going to have this as long as it's greater than the temp, our column specifically that we're looking at is 2. And then we're going to have d minus equals to a. So that for loop has a lot inside of it. Basically what we're saying is d is going to be equal to b. So d is dependent on whatever this is. And as long as our d is greater than or equal to our a, so as long as we have something we can look at, And as long as this value is greater than this value, we need to swap them, b minus equals a. So there's a lot of nesting for the shell sort. And once we're inside of this for loop, we're going to do another for loop. We're going to do int, and we'll call this c. And the reason why we can use c again is because this row this for loop uses c, but only inside of itself. So we're going to use c again, and only inside of itself here. So for int c is equal to 0, c is less than column, and then we're going to have c++. Remember, this c is totally different from this next c. We're actually going to do that again as well. And then we're going to do array index d, index c, and then we're going to do is equal to the array, and we're going to have it at index d minus a, and then we are going to have it at index c. And so this is for the entire row. So this for loop goes over the entire row. And so that'll be that for that for loop. And after this for loop, and then after this for loop, is where we're going to use this d value that we created. So for, and then we want to go through the columns again, and we're going to do int c is equal to d, and we're going to do c as long as it is less than our columns. Remember, the columns, just a refresher, our row is 5 and our column is 4, and that's because we were working with a 5x4 array. So we'll have it as less than column, and then we're going to do c++, and then this should just be 1 equal sign. Inside of here, we are going to have array, we're going to have d c is equal to our temp value c. And then after we do all this, we can come out of our last for loop, and we can print by doing toString, and we'll pass in our array. And now we can try running it. So pressing run here, initial, bubble, selection, shell, and initial. Checking our initials, they look good, nothing has changed there. Well, technically it has changed, but we have copied it, or we've sorted it, we've resorted it, we've copied it from the previous one, we've sorted it, and then we're copying it again, and then we're printing it out after our copy and our sort. So for the shell sort, let's see if it's right. We have 2, 4, 9, 10, 11. And so this is in the correct ascending order. Now what we're going to do is move on to the insertion row. So we've done testing this. I'm going to bring this underneath the print insertion sort, and we're just going to pull this down here. So we're going to do the insertion sort, and then we're going to do a search for the 5th row for the user number.